discuss the latest on the Russia investigation, as well as the Paris Accord, is Democratic Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
So people that we've spoken to on the Hill, really that everybody has spoken to, seem to have a lot more confidence in the Senate Intel Committee's work in terms of the Russia ties than the House Intel Committee's work. Are you comfortable that Chairman Devin Nunes, who supposedly stepped aside from this investigation, or at least being the chairman of the investigation in April, is now issuing these subpoenas?
Look, Devin Nunes is too close to the Trump White House. What he has done with the issuance of these new subpoenas is nothing more than a diversion. It's a red herring. The Trump White House is going to need an aquarium to contain all the red herrings they're trying to send out as they try to divert attention away from the central issue, which is that there is a historic allegation that the Russian government tried to compromise our elections and did so potentially in collusion with the Trump campaign, the Trump transition team, and ultimately with the Trump White House. That is the question which the American people want to have the answer to.
Yeah.
And Devin Nunes is just part of this attempt to divert people away from that central question.
That is the central question. And of course, you know that the Trump supporters in the White House say no evidence, not a shred of it, of collusion.
Exactly. And so that's why we need the hearings in the Senate. That's why we need the hearings in the House. That's why we need Robert Mueller to be able to conduct an unfettered, go anywhere, talk to anyone kind of an investigation, so all the facts are out on the table so the American people can determine for themselves whether or not there was collusion between the Trump campaign transition team and the Russian government. That is what the American people want. Everything else is a footnote.
So former FBI Director, as you know, James Comey, is set to testify in an open hearing to the Senate Intel Committee. What is the big question that you have for James Comey?
The question is whether or not the president asked Mr. Comey to go easy on Flynn, what Comey thought that the president was trying to accomplish with that kind of a request, whether or not he had told the president on 3 occasions that there was no investigation of President Trump and his relationship with the Russian government. All of that has to go out into the public domain. Our elections are the most sacred thing that we have in our country. It's why we conducted the American Revolution. It was so we could have free and unfettered elections. That is the question which Mr. Comey has to answer. Is President Trump and his campaign and his administration trying to cover up a collusion with the Russian government?
We just had Senator Mike Lee on, who said that James Comey had an opportunity to say that the president pressed him on May 3rd when he testified in front of the Judiciary Committee, but he didn't do that. He said, it's not happened in my experience. Now, he'll say that he was referring to questions about the Department of Justice, but why didn't he say it before now?
Listen, Mr. Comey can speak for himself. And Mr. Comey's testimony, of course, is the beginning of a new phase of this investigation where evidence that will be made more public because of the subpoenas which have been issued by the Senate and now the House committees are going to be out there for public dissemination. But Mr. Comey is going to have to speak for himself. And I think as long as he's given permission by Mr. Mueller to do so, that potentially we could have bombshells that begin to land next week. But right now, none of us really has any idea what he is going to say.
True. Paris Climate Accord, what happens if today President Trump pulls out of that?
If President Trump announces that he is going to unilaterally pull the United States out of the climate accord that the rest of the world has signed on to, with the exception of Syria and Nicaragua, then it will be an economic, a national security, a public health and a moral failure for the United States of America. It is going to be a statement that we are withdrawing from global leadership, that we are not accepting our responsibility, and that we're not going to take advantage of this huge economic opportunity in wind and solar, in clean energy jobs generally, in all-electric vehicles, to drive the economy of the 21st century on the planet and to brand the products that are made in America. Instead, they are going to cede this economic terrain to the Chinese, to the Germans, to the Indians, and others who are going to move forward almost with thanks to the United States, that the president is going to lower the standards for what the expectations are for our country. President Kennedy was born 100 years ago this week. He challenged America to put a man on the moon in 8 years and return him safely to this planet. We got that done. Donald Trump is like JFK in reverse. He is saying we can't do it. We can't have a clean energy revolution. We can't move to non-fossil fuel burning vehicles. And the rest of the world's going to move in that direction, and we are going to lose millions of jobs for hardworking Americans because the president is going to honor a promise to the coal industry rather than the promise that he should be honoring to the rest of the world and to the future generations of Americans.
Senator Ed Markey, thank you very much for your perspective.